Today, a brief history of robots.
Audrey Orr and the Robot Rage by Jenny Moore.
And how to make your own robot pencil holder.
Hello, in today's video we talk robots. Now the word robot is derived from a Czech word meaning forced labour, and robots are basically
Machines programmed to move and perform certain tasks automatically.
The word robotic was coined, however, by the writer Isaac Asimov in 1942 when he described the definition and characteristics of a robot. He also wrote the 3 laws of robotics. 1. A robot may not injure humans or allow them to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey human orders except where it conflicts with 1. 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as it doesn't conflict with 1 or 2. So the Czechs got it right. Robots are basically our mechanical slaves. When did they first come about? Well, let's take a brief look at the history of robots.
Believe it or not, we're rewinding back as far as 320 BC. Who knew that robots were even thought of back then? Well, the great philosopher Aristotle made this famous quote: "If every tool, when ordered, even if its own accord, could do the work that befits it, then there would be no need either of apprentices for the master workers or for slaves for..." A tool seems a long way off for the robots we know today, but get this. A diver diving in ancient wreckage found a 2,000-year-old series of gears, levers and cogs that the ancient Greeks were thought to have used for finding out information about the position of the sun, moon and stars. This is considered to be the world's earliest robot, as a robot is simply a machine that can automatically complete complex tasks all on its own. So when did robots that look like humans come about? Well, in 1495, Leonardo da Vinci designed the first one of these. It's not clear whether his design was ever built, but it was a knight designed to wave his arms, move his head, and even open its mouth and sit up. Very futuristic. Between 1700 and 1900, a number of automated mechanical creations were made, including a duck by Jacques de Vaucanson that could crane its neck, flip its wings, and even swallow food. In the 1800s, robots started making an appearance in books. Then in 1913, a big leap towards robotised culture came along when Henry Ford installed the world's first moving conveyor belt-based assembly line in his car factory. A Model T car could be assembled in 93 minutes, and this was back in the first quarter of last century. Then came the play of the Czech playwright Karel Čapek, who coined the phrase robot, and it was all about a society in which humans became enslaved by robots that rose up against them, and this led to a slew of plays in the 1930s and 40s that were dystopian future scenarios about robots going rogue. In 1932, the Japanese produced Lilliput, a wind-up 15-centimetre walking toy robot. And then 5 years later, Alan Turing's paper on computable numbers was released, which began the computer revolution. In 1941, that was when Asimov's laws of robotics came about, which he compiled into I, Robot, which he wrote and completed in 1950. 1954 saw the first robotic arm, which General Motors used on the assembly line at their production plant. Then 1957 saw the first artificial orbiting satellite. This marked the beginning of the space race, in which robots and machines were all too important. Things moved quickly after this. The first mass-produced computer, the IBM 360, came in 1964. Then in the 70s, we had the first Star Wars movie with our robot friends, C-3PO and R2-D2. Then all manner of companies decided to join in the robotics race, and we've had some truly innovative creations. In 2005, researchers at Cornell University made the first self-replicating robot. Things were getting really scary and futuristic now. Today, robots come in all shapes and sizes and perform all sorts of tasks. We wouldn't get by without them. They're used in commercial and agricultural production, manufacturing. They do dangerous
dangerous and repetitive jobs that we wouldn't want to do, and they could go to hazardous and alien places where we wouldn't want to go,
making them important in underwater and space exploration.
They also have a growing place in modern-day military procedures because they can go to rough terrains and dispose of explosives. They're also being used more and more domestically in the home with the introduction of things such as robot lawnmowers and vacuum cleaners. These are things that may just be the norm in the future, and the future holds exciting possibilities for robots. Already we are experimenting with robots that can be controlled by your mind alone. Robots do surgery in hospitals currently, but what about prosthetics that amputees can use and control with their minds? Driverless cars are already being experimented with and could be in use in the next few years.
We could also be on the cusp of an artificial intelligence revolution.
Robots today have been known to show basic self-awareness and hold reactive conversations with humans.
So we are living in exciting times when it comes to robots and robotics. Today's book is staying very much on this theme. Audrey Orr and the Robot Rage by Jenny Moore.
Chapter 3. Will the real Professor Droid please stand up? The Techno-Twin robotics building was nothing like the futuristic black glass tower Audrey had imagined. It was tucked away at the end of a little lane behind the Plymouth Gin distillery, between a row of houses and a boarded-up seafood restaurant, and looked more like a computer repair shop than a robotics lab. A closed computer repair shop at that. "Are you sure this is the right place?" she asked as Grandad rang the bell. Audrey put her hands up to the dirty glass and peered in. A row of old-fashioned PCs sat gathering dust in the gloom beyond. "It seems pretty shut to me." "Absolutely," said Grandad, although he didn't look that sure. "Number 13, the professor said. He patted Audrey's shoulder. "I expect it's much more impressive on the inside. From what I read on the internet last night, the man's a genius." Audrey hoped he was right, and she hoped Professor Droid hurried up and let them in because she needed the loo. She'd meant to go before she left school, but had quite forgotten in all the excitement of heading off to hire a robot version of herself. She crossed her legs while Grandad hammered on the door with his knuckles and counted up the dead insects in the window to take her mind off her bladder. 43 flies and 17 mummified woodlice. Still no one came. For the second time in 2 days, Audrey started to wonder if the whole thing was someone's idea of a joke. Robot twins? She recrossed her legs the other way. Those sort of things didn't really exist outside of books and films, did they? And comics, of course. Orr's Audrey's own comic book character, had teamed up with robot triplets just last week, but had to zap them to pieces when they tried to take over the world. Orr's was pretty good at zapping things. Grandad tried the handle. It was old and rusty, so rusty in fact that it turned his fingers orange, but the door refused to budge. Either it was locked or jammed shut with dead bugs. Even as they stood there waiting, a blue bottle came staggering along the window ledge like a drunk old man before rolling over onto his back. He didn't get up again. "Make that 44 dead flies." "Perhaps we should go in," said Audrey. "This place is starting to give me the creeps." It reminded her of the haunted chip shop where Orr's got attacked by zombie potatoes. But Grandad wasn't giving up so easily. "Hold your horses, pet. This fellow's the real deal, I'm sure of it. Let's at least hear what he has to say, and then you can decide." He wrapped a knitted handkerchief around the handle for extra traction and tried one last time. Bingo! Audrey heard the angry squeal of unoiled hinges as the door swung open to reveal a gloomy hallway with peeling brown wallpaper. "Hello," called Grandad, stepping inside with Audrey keeping close behind. "It's Mr. Gulliver and his granddaughter. We've got an appointment to see Professor Droid." No one answered. "Well," he said as they made their way down the hall, loose floorboards squeaking beneath their feet. "This is an adventure, isn't it?" Audrey nodded dutifully, but it didn't feel like an adventure anymore, at least not a good one. There was a nasty smell about the place, like Mr. Windybags after he'd eaten too much chicken, and the air felt cold and damp against her bare skin. She half expected a bag of zombie potatoes to jump out, sinking their spuddy little teeth into Grandad's skull. By the time the door slammed shut behind them, taking the last of the daylight with it, Audrey was having serious second thoughts. No holiday was worth getting your brains mushed and sucked out through your ears, Not even a luxury cruise. Mum and Dad would just have to go to Norway without her. I don't like this, Grandad, she whispered into the darkness. It's spooky and it smells. Oh, yes, sorry, pet. That'll be the chili I had for lunch. Perhaps I should have gone for vegetable lasagna. Oh, goody, interrupted a whiny metal voice. I spy humans. Audrey squinted through the gloom at the tall black shape moving towards them. Hello, said Grandad. Who's there? A light flicked on above their heads to reveal a gangly-looking man in a white lab coat. With his tufty grey hair and beard, cracked glasses and spotty bow tie, he had Mad Professor written all over him. Well, not quite all over him, but it was scrawled across his name badge in big, bold letters. Audrey couldn't help but stare. Ha, just our little joke, laughed the man, tapping his badge with oil-stained fingers. The professor's not really mad, of course. He's a genius. People sometimes get the two confused. Come on up and I'll introduce you. I don't get it, whispered Audrey to Grandad as they followed the stooping figure up the stairs. I thought he was the professor. Me too, pet, admitted Grandad. Must be one of his assistants, I suppose. The man led them across the landing and through another door into an enormous white room, crammed full of flashing, whirring machines and strange equipment. It was like something out of a science fiction film. Audrey could see a pile of spare legs and arms over by the blanked-out window, and what looked like a row of faceless heads laid out along one of the worktops. And there, in the middle of the room, stood another mad professor. He had the same tangled beard and wacky grey hair as the first one. The same cracked glasses, the bright bow tie, the same everything, in fact. Welcome to my humble workshop, he said, with a wonky-toothed smile. I'm Professor Droid. I hope P2 didn't keep you waiting too long. He's a bit of an early prototype and insists on stopping for a power nap halfway down the stairs. You mean he's a robot? Gasped Audrey, examining P2's face more closely. The hairy caterpillar eyebrows and wrinkled cheeks were 100% human-looking. So were the spiky white whiskers growing out of the mole on his chin. Are you sure? Professor Droid nodded. Of course I'm sure. Made him myself. Like I say, he's a bit of an early model, though. His voice is rather on the metallic side, and he can't eat or drink anything. He wouldn't last long in the outside world without giving himself away. But the new techno-twin range I've been working on, well, he puffed out his chest and rubbed his hands together. Quite incredible, though I say so myself. Every bit as human-looking as you and me. They talk like us, walk like us, and even think like us. I've seen the future, he announced, gesturing towards the door as if the future was there, waiting on the other side, and it's full of lazy people sitting at home with their feet up, while their look-alike robo-pals get on with the boring business of work and school. Just one more round of testing to go, out there in the public sphere, and I'll be ready to reveal my techno-twins to the scientific world at large. He pulled a spare index finger out of his coat pocket and pointed it at Audrey. Which I understand from your grandfather is where you might be able to help me. Or should I say, we might be able to help each other. Audrey nodded dumbly. Even though she'd come looking for a realistic robot to take her place at school, a supply pupil to fill in while she was gone, she hadn't expected to find anything quite as lifelike as P2, and judging by the look on his face, neither had Grandad. He stood beside her in silence, his mouth flopping open and shut like a fish. The shock seemed to have set his chili off again too. P2 buzzed around them with a can of air freshener, humming to himself as he sprayed. Here you go, Professor Droid handed Grandad a big pile of papers held together with a rubber band. You'll find all the terms and conditions in here, he said, plus a copy of a new poem I've been working on, about trees. I got stuck at the end, trying to find a rhyme for horse and chestnut. Grandad leafed through the paperwork with glazed eyes as the professor filled them in on the technical side of his robotic creations. And that's why I'm looking for a few more volunteers to run them through their paces in real-life situations. He finally finished, quarter of an hour later. Audrey realised she'd drifted off halfway through his speech, trying to work out a rhyme for horse chestnut. Poor stressed mutt? Sauce-messed butt? She nodded her head a few times as if she'd been hanging on to the professor's every word and tried to look interested. And what would I have to do exactly, she asked. Do, repeated the professor. Why, nothing at all. I thought I'd explained all that. I just need to run you through that intermolecular scanner over there and take a 5D plasma image of your external framework using the Homocopy 620. Then it's a few quick zaps with the neuroreplicator and you're all done. I'll have the new you ready and waiting for collection the day before your trip. Audrey nodded some more, although she didn't have the first clue what an intermolecular scanner might be or what a neuroreplicator did, just as long as it wasn't too painful. Your new techno-twin will be pre-programmed ready to receive her final instructions, the professor went on, leaving you free to swan off on your travels. As I said, it really is as simple as that. He turned to Grandad and lowered his voice. Don't get too attached to her, though. I want her back afterwards. Audrey smiled politely at the professor's joke, as if Grandad would want to keep a robot granddaughter when he had a real one all of his own. Will it hurt? She asked. Professor Droid laughed. Did you hear that, P2? Will it hurt? Why, my dear girl, you won't feel a thing, I promise you. He glanced down at her school jumper and scratched his chin mole. Funnily enough, you're the second person I've had in here from Ivy Ridge Junior School. Small world, eh? Audrey blinked in surprise. What? Someone else at school had already sneaked off on holiday, leaving a robot behind to fool the teachers. Who on earth could it have been? A slow grin spread across her face. If Mr. Stickler and the rest of the staff hadn't spotted that techno-twin hiding in their midst, then they wouldn't notice hers either. What do you think, Pet? Asked Grandad, who seemed to have given up completely on the paperwork. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Audrey was still grinning. I'm in. This was too good an opportunity to miss. Watch out, Scandinavian Queen, she thought to herself. Here I come. And yes, please. Jag vill gärna ha pannakakor. I certainly would like some pancakes for one of my 6 meals a day anyway. Excellent. You won't regret it. Professor Droid handed Grandad a short medical form and a chewed pencil. If you could fill this out for me, please, we can get started straight away, unless either of you have any more questions, that is, or a rhyme for horse chestnut. Well, yes, I do actually, said Audrey. A question, that is. There were probably 100 things she should have been asking, like, was it safe? That would have been a good one to check. Was it legal? Would Grandad have to charge Robo-Audrey up every night? Would she really be able to manage school dinners without giving the game away? Would she be recycled after she'd finished her data download? But at that exact moment in time, there was only one question Audrey was interested in. An increasingly pressing question at that. Please, can I use your toilet? How scary would it be to meet your robot double? Ugh. Now then, I thought it might be fun for us to make some robot pencil holders. And you've guessed it, all you need to kick off with is a can like the type you get baked beans in, and you need to make sure that the top has been cut off smoothly so there's no sharp edges. So get a grown-up to help you with that. And then also you need to take the label off so it no longer says baked beans on the front. And then you are ready to rock and roll. Hux is going to be making one as well, aren't you? Have you got your can, Hux?
Yeah.
Great news. Good to know. Okay, so first you need to get a piece of paper and cut it into a strip. Well done, Hux. So you need to cut out 2 TV screen shapes that you're going to stick on. One for the face and one for the stomach. So me and Hux are going to do that now. So I have cut out 2 little TV screens for my head and my stomach of my robot. Have you done yours, Hux?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Look at that.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so now what you can do
forgot
is
to
draw a
show
little robot face and a little robot tummy. So you can do buttons or maybe zigzags. Okay, so I've made a head and a body, and then I'm going to stick it on with a bit of glue. And Hux, have you done yours as well?
Yep.
Let's see it. Oh, wow. Hux, you've even done an antennae. I have to hurry up a bit. I'm behind the game. So now mine and Huxley's robots need arms. So what you need to do is cut 2 thin strips of paper. And then you're going to concertina them up by just folding them back and forth. When you pull it out, it will be a bit zigzaggy like that. Then you can stick it on. So for the feet, you could either draw 2 wheels and stick them on like that, or you could cut out two little rectangular flaps and then stick them underneath for feet. And you can colour the arms and the feet in before you stick them in place. And then all we need to do is give our robot an antenna. You can either draw one like Huq's and just stick it on the top in the middle there. Or what I'm doing is I've got one of those little wire sort of bread taggy things, and I'm going to fashion it into an antenna shape. And then I'm going to stick it on with tape there, and then my robot is done. There we go. I have stuck my feet on my robot, and my robot is ready to get some pens and pencils inside. Hux, is your robot done?
Yes, I am a robot.
I am a robot. We are robots. Bye.
We are so much robots. Bye-bye. Subscribe and smash that thumbs up button. Bye.